Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Here we got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting their roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, and if you are not in chat yet, please feel free to get in there. We do answer questions, and we welcome you. You can go to fatemag.com/fate-radio to get in there. So get on it. Have fun. Now, tonight's guest is Dr. Scott Taylor, and I have had the best time learning about him. The information that he shares is about, well, he'll be talking about his own personal shared near-death experience as well as the lessons learned, because there's so many NDEers that they're open. A lot of them are open to sharing that experience. And from what I understand, these lessons actually change people's perspectives and allow them to realize more fulfilled lives. I think that's awesome. I enjoy talking to people who have had near-death experiences. And Dr. Scott Taylor, welcome to Fate Magazine Radio.
Hey, thanks, Kat. I am really glad to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
I have too. I have been learning, reading, and trying to be up to date on what you help people with. I always tell people I have not had a near-death experience, and I started thinking about that when I was actually getting ready for a panel, and I had a placenta abruptio that went south pretty fast.
Uh-oh.
But, they put me under, and I don't remember anything after that as far as talking to them. But I remember that my the pediatrician that was there for the baby had her daughter with her in the operating room. And everybody in the operating room had a wet head because it was like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I got everybody up. So it was a small town in Tennessee. But so I'm wondering now if that was, I don't remember traveling. I probably was just staying close to that body so I could hang on to it. But, it's just an interesting thing because it made me start thinking. So that's my part of that.
So, Kat, do you remember seeing the operating room?
Yes. Like I said,
what was it?
Well, I was...
How did you know everybody had wet head?
Well, the physicians all had wet heads because they had showered when they got up, and they were going to try to stop the bleeding. And when I got in the elevator, it just went gangbusters. So we turned around and went back down to the operating areas. And once I got in there, they put me out in the hall. So, I was out, but it was wild because, hey, I'd never heard of anybody having a child in the operating room. That just struck me as odd that somebody didn't get her, that she was just sitting there with me. But I don't remember very much about that. I just remember the child, and I remember everybody had just showered, which is nice. They all smell good. So, and when I woke up, I was in a room, and my sisters-in-law were sitting at the end of the bed, and they said, "We have never seen someone actually be whiter than their sheet. This is crazy." But, I bled out. So it was crazy. But that's all I remember, to be honest. Well, the equipment and stuff, but.
Yeah. So the anesthesiologist put you out in the hallway, and then you were towed into the operating room, and you remember things that were happening in the operating room, like the girl and what the equipment was looking like, and things you shouldn't ordinarily have been witness to, correct?
I would think, yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome to the tribe.
But I don't remember going anywhere. Isn't that sad? I mean, I've always talked to people that do.
That happens more often than you think. You clearly had some sort of consciousness that was outside of your physical body. And, for a lot of folks, that's all it takes is it's a little bit of out of body and then some perceptions of what happened in that physical space. And then poof, you come back and then you wake up later in the hospital room, arguing with your sisters-in-law. So.
Well, we weren't really arguing, but I was just like, geez, guys, it's been a day,
It's been a day.
So it was crazy. But
yeah. It does give you a real sense that there is, that consciousness is not limited to the physical body. And clearly, the idea that you're put under by a series of chemicals and then have the ability to still retain imagery and sound and texture and the whole thing. that's quite a remarkable endorsement of, yeah, there's something else that's going to happen after we make our final transition.
Well, I firmly believe in that. It's I've seen a lot of the residual energy in places with what I do. It actually appears to be interactive, and that surprises me sometimes.
Interactive in what way?
Well, just if you ask a question, you can. I do not often hear, and disembodied voices like straight out here, but I hear responses that are recorded on different devices. I never want to fall back on an individual telling me that they heard something. I would prefer to hear it for myself, either electronically or myself. I try to stay focused on the research and not on the woo side. The woo side gets in there sometimes, but the research part, it's fun.
It is indeed.
Right?
Right. I love hearing people's stories and being witnessed when things unusual happen. I think it's just more fun than one person should have.
Well, we got to hang out more often then, because weird just seems to show up every so often. I guess you do a lot of that, though.
I'm sorry, say that again, Kat?
I said, I guess you experience a good bit of, wild on occasion.
On occasion, yeah. It's one of the things about having had a shared death experience is, once you touch the light, all kinds of things begin to show up. It's like our normal filters that we're born with when we come into the physical world begin to drop away, and we now have the ability to connect with vibrations, energies that are not restricted to the physical world. We now have the ability to touch all different kinds of vibrations, and then things show up. You begin to hear things and see things and sense things, and intuition really starts to show up. And then there's that whole learning process about it, and when intuition does show up, what does it look like and feel like, and how do you begin to trust it? It's way fun.
It is. But I did not tell people all about you, and I feel that I am shirking my responsibilities as your host. But when we talk about these things, Dr. Scott Taylor totally knows what he's talking about. He is the president of Expanded Awareness Institute, which helps people interested in near-death and shared-death experiences. They come and they want to explore what that means to them, and that's pretty cool. He is also author and voice of 6 best-selling CDs of guided meditations on near-death experiences, and I want to talk about that in his Into the Light series. And I got mine from Amazon. I'm sure they're available other places. And he's also been a director at the Monroe Institute, which is a pretty happening thing. So you can just find out all about him. He is fantastic. You can Google him. You can find out all the things. But I think this says, Scott, your gift is the ability to make the exploration of the non-physical universe accessible to the curious. That's what caught my eye. I like that.
My mission is to be a guide. Yes.
Yes. I think you're probably pretty good at that.
If I get to vote, yes.
You get to vote.
Okay, good.
Yes. So, well, when did you have your shared death experience, and what made it different from an individual near-death experience?
So, this happened in the summer of 1981. I was in love with a woman. Her name was Mary Frances, and she and her son Nolan, who just turned 7, had been out sailing on a lake in southern Minnesota. And on their way home, they were involved in a horrific car accident. Mary Fran was killed outright, and Nolan had this severe head trauma. And luckily, I mean, we are in Minnesota, so they took him to Mayo, some of the best healthcare in the world. And, bless those people who work there. And it took him 6 days to make his transition.
Oh, gosh.
So I need to back up just a hair to say that Mary Fran was one of 9 children. And so as a result of that 6 days interval, family had time to come together and to be there and, hold vigil with Nolan in the hospital. And so you can just imagine, I mean, there were uncles and aunts and cousins and grandparents and friends, and that's just her side of the family. And my side of the family was there too. So there were a lot of us that were holding vigil. And so as a result, what we did is we organized ourselves every 3 hours, or every 2 hours, 2 of us would go in and be with Nolan. And as it so happened, my shift was with Jannie, Mary Fran's oldest sister. And we had the 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. shift on the morning of the 6th day. And, Nolan was in a coma. He never came out of the coma. But what the medical personnel there told us, and we now know this to be true, is that, hearing is the last sense to go.
Yes.
And so it's really important to talk and be with him in that way. And so, we read him stories from his favorite book. We told him about what was going on with all of the relatives. And it, as it just so happened, that evening, the younger members of the group that were, holding vigil in the hospital waiting room had gotten tired of sleeping on the floor. So they had gone out into the Mayo Health System and raided all of the seat cushions that were on different couches and so all of these seat cushions were, laid on the floor. And so we were describing that to Nolan and then, just kind of giving him a little update as to who was there and who was checking in. And then it got to be about 4:45 in the morning, and Jannie, who was a trained emergency room nurse, went to the end of his bed and looked at the charts, and then she looked up at the myriad of monitors that were surrounding Nolan, and she just looked at me, shook her head, and then held her hand out to me and said, "Scott, it's time." So we pulled up a couple of chairs next to Nolan's head, and we took turns telling him that he'd been a really brave boy and that he had struggled mightily to stay alive and to stay with us, here in the physical world. But if his mother should show up, reminder that she died at the scene of the accident 6 days before. But if Mary Fran shows up, if his mother showed up and wanted to take him to be with her, that was okay. That would be appropriate, and that he should go with her if Mary Fran should come and do that. We told him that we loved him dearly and that he would always be in our heart and mind. And so it's now 5 o'clock, and we left the hospital room, and the next shift came in. Well, it wasn't 45 minutes later when the nurse on the floor showed up, and she told us that the end was close. So all of us filed into this little hospital room, and I don't know, like 40 or 50 of us. I mean, it was a lot of people.
Wow.
And as it just turned out, I was one of the last people to enter into the room, and it's already 4 deep around the bed, and so I decided that I would just sit on the windowsill next to Willie, which Mary Fran's youngest brother. And there isn't anything to do, really. I mean, you just sit there and you're watching the heart monitor, and, it does its little spiky thing, and then it was getting slower and slower and slower. And at one point, it flatlines. And when Nolan flatlined, what I experienced was Mary Fran coming across the veil and scooping her son out of his physical body. And it was the most exquisite reunion that you can imagine. I mean, just picture it. It's a mother and child reunion after this really traumatic event, and it was a welcoming. And it surprised me because I was part of that reunion. I could feel what was going on between Mary Fran and Nolan. And then, to my surprise, the two of them turned to me and embraced me. And then the three of us left and went into the light. And when I entered into the light, it is just extraordinary. I mean, it's like you're one with the fabric of the universe, and it is this all-encompassing, forgiving love. It's joy, it's ecstasy, it's there's no judgment. It's just all of a sudden you are enveloped with the love of God. And so I was part of that, and I was there with Mary Fran and Nolan. And so the three of us had a chance to spend some time together, and we had a chance to reaffirm our love and affection for each other. We had a chance to say our goodbyes, and then we had a chance to just be with one another in this space where we are sharing in the love for each of us and the love of the universe. It's all kind of woven together there. And then at a certain point, it seemed complete.
Right.
And then the two of them turned and went off into, they went further into the light, and I came back to my physical body. So that's part A of my shared death experience.
I need to pause you.
Yep.
Because I need to take a break after that. That's so beautiful, and so I have questions about that, but we'll get them right after this. So for everyone listening, I know that you probably have the same questions I do, so we'll just all ask, but we'll be back right after this.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? Well, you see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watched a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of, a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am so pleased that you are here. If you missed the first segment, no worries. We will be available in podcast, iHeart, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your streaming, you'll find us. And I have to tell you, Scott, that I have been so surprised, impressed, and now moved beyond belief by the things that I have read about you and now have heard in person. I appreciate that you shared that story because that's beautiful. And
thank you.
When you went with them,
yeah,
what happened to your physical body?
Okay, and thank you for that perfect segue into part B of my experience, because two things happened. You know, one is that I left my physical body and went with Mary Fran and Nolan, and there we were in the light. The second thing that happened was that I was fully present in my physical body. And I know that because here I am sitting on the windowsill, and I am experiencing the love of the universe, the joy, the ecstasy, the compassion that is the universe, and it's like it's just trying to burst out of me. And my face had this this joyous expression on it, because this is wonderful. I mean, that's a poor word, but
it is apt.
It's just trying to get out. And if any of the other grieving relatives in the room had taken a second to look at me, my expression would have been entirely inappropriate for the room. And I was conscious of that. And so as a result, I took my hands and I put them over my face so as not to show my face to the world. And so that I could, just be with the experience and not have to worry about anybody else. I grew up in small town southern Minnesota. I was part of the, I grew up in the mainline Presbyterian church, and so none of this is ever talked about in that world, and so it was all completely new to me, and therefore I didn't have a term for it. Now I do. I've been, studying this stuff for a long time now, and we call it bilocation. I had two distinctly separate consciousnesses, one with Mary Fran and Nolan in the light, and one of them in my physical body there in the hospital room with all of the other grieving relatives. And then when the three of us were complete and Mary Fran and Nolan went further into the light, I then returned. That part of me that was with them returned back into my physical body. I became one consciousness again, and I was able to regain my composure, pull down my hands, and then be able to participate with the other relatives who had just lost their grandson, their nephew, their friend, their neighbor. There was lots of hugging and tears that you can imagine. And, this is the double loss for them, because they'd lost Mary Fran 6 days ago, and then now they just lost Nolan. And so it was important for me to be there with them, and I was. So yeah, that's what happened to me. I mean, I'm awake and alert and conscious in two separate locations.
Well, it's breathtaking. Once you got through the grieving process, which I'm sure that actually probably helped you a great deal with, but you're human and you still go through that. What did you consider to be the best takeaway from it?
That's an interesting question. Well, I had been taken to a place that I didn't even know existed. I'd heard stories in church about how we survive physical death and we go to heaven and blah, blah, blah. But here I had the experience of being in the non-physical world, of communicating both verbally and non-verbally with people that I knew and loved. And so the takeaway was that somehow, as a non-injured body, because in a near-death experience, people's physical bodies are so wounded, so traumatized that they die. And then there's a lift out, and you have an experience in the non-physical world, and then somebody resuscitates the physical body, wounded though it might be, and you come back to your physical body. My experience wasn't anything like that. I'm perfectly fine. I'm sitting on a windowsill, and yet I have been transported into this space that is extraordinary. And so my takeaway was that you don't have to die in order to have this experience of the afterlife. And I knew it, that if I did it once, I could do it again. I just had to figure out a way to do it. So if you're going to ask me what the second biggest thing that comes out of that experience, and I'd tell you it's curiosity, because I really was driven to try to find a way to touch base with Mary Fran and Nolan again. And so at the beginning, what I did was I figured that these ancient religious sites that were around the world might have a spark of energy in them, and that might help propel me back into that space. So I went to Stonehenge, I went to the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx and Oracle of Delphi and Machu Picchu and more. I went to more cathedrals than you can shake a stick at, just
I bet you did. I mean,
hoping that there was something in that space that would launch me. And for me, nada, just crickets. Just it didn't work. I did other interesting experiences, but it isn't what I thought. And so then I started doing other practices. I studied meditation. I started with TM. I studied with shamans in both North America and South America. I studied with the Emoto religion in Japan, and I went to seminary. Just trying to find different ways to enter into that space again. Same thing, no result, until I found the Monroe Institute, which teaches a very specific kind of meditation that's designed to help you enter into those vibratory states that are the afterlife, and then hold you there so that you have time to learn what it is that you, how to get back there, and then how to navigate in that space. Because when you read the accounts or you talk to people who've had near-death experiences, you're driving along in a car and bam, next thing you know, you're thrust into this environment that you have no idea what it's about and why you're there and how to have an experience in there, and it's just so confusing. Well, there are other ways you can use meditation to enter into those exact same spaces, but do it under controlled conditions. So it's not so chaotic and it's not so traumatic, and it's loving and gentle, and you have control. And in a near-death experience, you really don't have control because you have no idea where you are and what you're doing, and things are just happening to you as opposed to being a co-participant, a co-creator of your experience.
Well, I would prefer the control side.
Yeah, me too. That whole trauma thing to get out of your physical body, really a bad plan.
That's what I think too. But really, it's a conundrum for me, because a lot of people, when I was an adolescent, I used TM, Transcendental Meditation, to be able to escape the reality in my home and to heal stuff that was being caused outside of my control.
Yep.
But I don't know if I have that focus anymore. I would have to build back up to it. I do different things now. But it just seems like everybody who is doing these vibrational studies and experiences is getting there through whatever form of meditation works for them.
Yep, it's true.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
there's lots of different forms of meditation, and it keeps popping up. I mean, when you read, about what people are doing, trying to enter these spaces, you keep reading about why people are meditating, and part of it is that we have when you're entering into these expanded states of awareness, there is a flood of information that can come to you, and so meditation makes it easier to access those vibratory states, and it also gives you the tools so you can focus and do what it is that you want to do in that space. So maybe it's to get answers about your living situation, or maybe it's to realize that whatever is going on in your physical world, it's just temporary, and that you can connect with that loving presence that is always with you. Maybe it's to connect with your guidance. And there's all kinds of different things that are appropriate when entering into the expanded states of awareness. So more power to you. If TM's your way in, great. If it's through other forms of meditation, great.
But it's mainly
whatever works for you.
So primarily, it's stilling your mind to be able to focus outside of it, right?
Yep.
In order to get there.
Yep. Yeah, it helps to get rid of all of that chatter that's there, and when that chatter dies down, that's when the other information has a chance to come in. I mean, the world's best remote viewers will talk about that, about how when they go into their meditative state in order to see something at a distance, they have an intention. I would like to see what it is that's in this envelope, and then their mind goes quieter and quieter and quieter, and that's when the information can come in, and they get information about what it is that's the target. So it's the same thing, and which is all about intent. What is it you want to do at this extraordinary state where your mind is calmed almost to zero?
I have such a hard time with getting that low until I'm actually doing the work regularly. I don't know why I ever step back from it. I think sometimes I get intimidated by what I experience, but I have ADHD that is basically just, wide open on occasion. Is so not on others. I don't understand that. But it gets in the way sometimes. You have to actively beat that down as you go in. But we need to take a break, and we'll be right back with more information. Sorry. And y'all come back too.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am Kat Hobson, your host, and you are getting to enjoy my guest, Dr. Scott Taylor, and I have to tell y'all that this has been so much fun and so moving and so emotional just in this first 45 that I'm a little overwhelmed with how beautiful the emotions that he shared were and are. And Scott, I'm sorry I had to interrupt you for the break, but man, your information is so great.
Well, where I kind of like to pick it up, Kat, is we were talking about different forms of meditation, and what worked for me was a form of meditation that uses binaural beats that was pioneered by the Monroe Institute. And for those of you who haven't heard about this before, binaural beats, it's an old technology discovered in the 1880s. And essentially, so picture yourself with headphones on, and in one ear there's a tone, solid tone like 100 hertz, and another solid tone in the other ear, only slightly different, say 104 hertz. And the brain tries to equalize those two, but it can't because it's inherently different. And so it sets up a third tone, which is the difference between the two. So what the brain starts to hear is this warbling tone at 4. So that's the difference between 104 and 100. And then the coolest thing is that the hemispheres of the brain then sync up, start to operate as one unit, and it's vibrating at that vibration of 4 hertz, which if that was the only thing that was going into your ears, you would be dead asleep because that's the vibration of deep sleep. Well, Bob's genius, Bob Monroe, who invented this whole thing, his genius was that he started to layer them. And as a result, you say you put in one that had a differential of 12, which would be mind awake, and then another one with a differential of 4, which would be body asleep. And now all of a sudden, if you play them at the same time, you're into this expanded state of awareness where your mind is bright awake and clear, and your body is deeply asleep. And for those of you who know, Bob Monroe was the person who coined the term out-of-body experience, and he used these binaural beats to help train others in how to achieve out-of-body states. And then as he started doing experiments with other differentials in those vibrations, different expanded states of awareness, some of which, if you tweak them, can lead you into the vibratory state of the afterlife. And of course, that was my concern, was that I wanted to get to a spot where I could touch base again with Mary, Fran, and Nolan. And I was using that technology. I was able to do that. I was able to be with Mary, Fran, communicate with Nolan, and, establish a lifelong relationship with them. Because, they died 41 years ago. But I can, it's kind of interesting because Mary Fran comes into my life in meditations, and then she'll leave for a while, and then she'll come in and she'll leave. She's got stuff to do, and we're fine. Nolan, on the other hand, is always with me. He's just like my guardian. always there. And that's, principally because Mary Fran was a single mother. The biological father of her child, never took responsibility, wanted nothing to do with Nolan, and disavowed any knowledge of his actions. So as a result, she never told Nolan who his biological father was. And when I entered into the picture and Mary Fran and I started dating, he's looking to me as a father figure, and we were bonding in that way. And so that's the kind of relationship that we have still to this day, is, like father child, but it's, more sophisticated than that, because, he's grown up, and truth be it, on the other side, you can adopt any age you want. So there you go.
What do they choose?
Well, it depends. Sometimes when we have this place that we meet, so I go into a meditative state, and there's a park bench that the two of us meet on. And it looks a lot like those park benches that are in Central Park. Mm-hmm. It's got kind of the scrolly metal things on the end. And we sit down on this park bench and we have conversations. And sometimes he shows up and he's 7 years old, just like he was when he made his transition. Sometimes he's an adult, so, he's 48 years old. He's the age he would be today. And other times, he'll show up at different ages. And one of the more meaningful experiences that we had is he showed me another life that he's having, so he's reincarnated into another body. And so we're sitting there on the bench, and he's a young man. I'm, somewhere like late 20s, early 30s, and he's dressed in a suit that says something. It looks like the 1950s, because it's slim, white shirt, skinny black tie with that, tie bar that's up too high.
I do.
And anyway, he sits down on the bench with me, and he has a briefcase, and he opens up the briefcase, and inside the briefcase is a gun. And he goes on to explain to me that he, in this other life that he's having, he is something that's like a U.S. Marshal, and that he had to kill somebody in the line of duty, and it was the first time he's ever had to hurt someone, and it was devastating for him to take somebody else's life. And he trained for it, and mentally he, that's, they do a pretty good job of getting people in the right headspace to be able to do their job. But the reality of taking someone's life was really more than he thought it would be. And we had to have, or we didn't have, we were able to have a conversation like a father and son. And, what's that like? And what does it mean to do your duty? And what does it mean to protect others when it costs a life? And just to have a profound conversation with a young man that I care deeply about. So it was an extraordinary thing to be able to have a relationship that continues to this day, and know that I can go back there and pick up our conversation where we left off, or have an entirely new conversation based on what it is that he's working on in his life at the time.
That's so interesting. But we stepped away from the binaural beats, but I was just so curious about how he chose to present, or chooses, obviously, since it's different all the time.
So to kind of wrap up the binaural beats here, because you can engineer what the tones are, what you got going into one ear and what do you have going into the other ear, you can very specifically lead the brain into the vibratory states that are most appropriate to what it is you want to accomplish. So if you're interested in doing remote viewings, there's a vibration for that. If you're interested in going back to the void, that primordial state that existed before matter, there's a vibration before that. If you're interested in doing something like healing energy, that's a heart energy, there's a vibration for that. There's a place that we call the bridge that is it's so entities who are in the non-physical world, they lower their vibrations, we raise our vibration, and we meet at the vibration we call the bridge. There's another place that is the area of life between lives. We call that the park. That's where my bench is that I meet Nolan. And so we get to have it's really flexible, these binaural beats, and they lead you into very profound states. They hold you there. And the cool thing about them is that once you're in those states, you learn them and you don't need the technology anymore.
That is cool.
All you have to do is, I just picture that park bench in my head. Boom, I'm there. And, Nolan shows up and we continue our conversation.
That is the neatest.
That's what I thought.
Well, I mean,
that's why during your introduction to me, I have 6 albums that are available at hemisync.com that use very specific vibratory states so that you can do the things that happen during a near-death experience, like meet your guides, go to the tunnel, have a reunion with the dead relatives, have a life review, meet non-physical entities that will love and heal you. It's that area of life between lives. It's all available to you. Yay!
Why do we not hear more about that? That's important.
It's important. Well, that's my job, and I'm exhausted trying to tell.
Well,
Just kidding.
I'll tell you what. I'll do my turn of shouting from the rooftops for you.
Thanks, Kat.
How long were you with the Monroe Institute?
I was a trainer with them for 35 years, and in the last 2 years, was executive director and president. Got them through the pandemic. I thought, who knew it would show up again?
Right.
And retired and am now learning how to become a podcaster, rock balancer, and a person. I'm learning Tai Chi at the moment. It's really fun.
I just started that. In fact, I have a class at 11 tomorrow. But hey, it's fun though. It's much better.
It is fun.
It's much better than the stuff that hurts my joints. But right? I mean,
right.
You don't want to come home from a workout hurt.
No. In fact, if it hurts, you're doing it wrong. So
that's right.
Yeah, I really like it because it's another way to train yourself to focus your attention. Because if your mind is wandering and you're doing Tai Chi, you forget where you are and what you're doing. And no, you have to be present. You have to be really present. And that's a wonderful skill for all of us to learn.
Well, I think it's an imperative. But, we are at the top of the hour, peeps, and we are going to go and take our break. This is our news break. So for those who listen all the time, y'all know that I'm always looking for a little good news, right? We can make that happen. So we will be back after this. Y'all come back too. Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. Trigger laws are taking effect in some states this week to restrict abortion. These laws have been on the books for a while in many states, set to be enacted if the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, which it did in June. And that could have an effect on the midterm elections this fall, as NPR's Mara Eliason reports.
So now the big political battle is about which party will be seen by voters as extreme on abortion, because most voters are moderate on abortion. Republicans want to paint Democrats as the party of abortion on demand. That's hard to do if the Democrat says they support Roe, because Roe has restrictions. Democrats want to paint Republicans as supporting laws that would criminalize abortion, prosecute women for using abortion pills, supporting laws to ban abortion in all cases.
NPR's Mara Eliason reporting. A Ukrainian drone struck a building near the headquarters of Russia's Black Sea Fleet yesterday, that according to Russian officials. As NPR's Frank Langfitt reports, Ukraine appears to be expanding its attacks to the Russian-occupied peninsula.
Crimea's Russian-appointed governor, who's not recognized by the West, said Russians shot down the drone over the naval headquarters and it crashed onto a roof. He called the attack a failure. It follows a huge explosion last week on a Russian ammunition depot in Crimea that Ukrainian officials attributed to an elite sabotage unit. Earlier this month, an attack on a Russian air base destroyed at least 7 fighter jets. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky suggested there could be more to come. You can literally feel Crimea in the air this year, the president said in a daily video message. He calls the Russian occupation of Crimea, which began in 2014, only temporary, and insists, quote, Ukraine is coming back. Frank Langfitt, NPR News, Krivori.
Services on Portugal's main railroad line were suspended and several highways closed to traffic today due to wildfires. Alison Roberts reports from Lisbon that the government has declared a state of alert in the country.
Firefighters are again battling several major blazes in Portugal's drought-affected interior at the start of what was forecast to be the third heatwave this summer. Every cell phone has been sent a text about the extreme risk, warning against starting any kind of fire in rural areas. The government has also barred normal public access to forests and imposed restrictions on the use of machinery, even by farmers, to avoid sparks. The plan is for the state of alert to stay in place until Tuesday night. Already this year, hundreds of thousands of acres have burned in Portugal, above all due to lack of rainfall that has left forests exceptionally dry. For NPR News, I'm Alison Roberts in Lisbon.
U.S. futures contracts are trading lower at this hour. Dow futures contract is down about 0.2%. NASDAQ futures contracts down about 0.5%. S&P 500 futures are down about 0.3%. You're listening to NPR News. Russian authorities say a car bomb killed the adult daughter of an influential political theorist who is often referred to as Putin's brain. Officials say preliminary information indicated a bomb exploded in the SUV driven by the 29-year-old daughter of nationalist philosopher Alexander Dugin, a vehement supporter of Russia sending troops into Ukraine. An advisor to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, though, denied Ukrainian involvement in that car bomb attack. Rainstorms swept across the southwest this weekend, bringing threats of flash floods to at least 5 states in the region. Paolo Scialtata from Colorado Public Radio has more.
Colorado weather officials say less than 2 inches of rain in under an hour could trigger flash flooding and debris flow in and around wildfire burn scars. A highway in the East Troublesome Fire area, which burned nearly 200,000 acres in Arapahoe National Forest in 2020, closed due to mudslides blocking the road Saturday night. Across the Rocky Mountains in Utah, rangers are still searching for a hiker swept away by strong flood currents in Zion National Park Friday afternoon. Parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and western Texas also were under flood watches over the weekend. For NPR News, I'm Paolo Scialtata in Denver.
UK port workers joined rail staff in strikes today. Almost 2,000 workers at the UK's biggest container port launched an 8-day strike over pay. This as people faced travel disruptions for the third day yesterday as thousands of rail workers struck over pay and benefits. And all this as the UK deals with soaring inflation and rising prices for food and fuel. This is NPR.
Life Kit is like your friend with really good advice.
So, can I really be truthful?
Yeah.
It's just me and you, right?
Well, sure. Let's say it is.
3 times a week, Life Kit is in your feeds with episodes on health, personal finance, personal growth, and so much more. Listen to Life Kit from NPR.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back for the second hour of Fate Mag Radio. I'm so glad you're here because you know what? We are the online voice of Fate Magazine. You can go to fatemag.com and renew your subscriptions, get a subscription. Check out our new issues as well as our old. Do all the things that you want to do. And you can also listen to the show there. So fatemag.com/fate-radio will get you right to us and right in our chat. So my guest tonight is Scott Taylor, Dr. Scott Taylor. And we have spent this past hour getting to know a little bit about shared death experiences, which was so astounding. But we've talked about meditation and what it's good for. Not just that. Everything about transcending things. But, Scott, welcome back.
Thank you. It's been a fun first hour. I'm looking forward to the second one. Wow.
I'm glad. Well, do you feel like a couple of questions out of chat?
I'm ready for chat questions.
Well, we've got a chatter waiting on this. When you had your shared death experience, did you happen to see any of your other loved ones who had passed?
Oh, interesting. No, at that time, my eyes were only for Mary Fran and Nolan. So that was the focus of my attention, and that communicating with my other dead relatives wound up coming later. As I developed my meditation skills, I have been able to go to that place where you can easily meet your relatives that have gone before. And yes, so the answer is not then, but yes, I have been able to do that and have quite a wide-ranging group of folks that I've touched base with.
That's fun. I think that's fun. But
I thought it was fun too. Yeah.
I mean, that's what you do it for in large part. Now, I was going through your albums, and just so people know, he is the author and voice of these meditation CDs, but they include near-death experience meditations, free flow meditations, I love that, meeting your guides, exploring the tunnel, exploring source, and radiating love. I guess love of your life could be there, but radiating love. And I just have to think that is not a bad place to go with your life. You can go to https neardeathmeditations.com and the Afterlife podcast. Let's see. There's 3 YouTube channels that you can get in on. And I think that when someone is just starting out with a curiosity for this, where would you send them as far as the meditations go? Would you just start with free flow?
Yeah. No, actually, I think it's really helpful to have some sort of guidance, which is why these are guided meditation. And I think the easiest place to start is the one that's called Meeting Your Guides. And because they're always with us, they're always present, they're trying to talk to us all the time, only as you and I both know, we don't listen all the time.
True.
And so establishing a relationship with a non-physical entity that is trying to communicate with us all the time anyway is relatively easy. And so there's some verbal protocols that you can do that can make that easier. And then on that same album, once you learn what those protocols are, then you can do them yourself. That's what a free flow meditation is. So the binaural beats are just happening in the background. You're usually embedded in some sort of music or pink noise or something, so you don't actually hear them that much. And then you can meet your guides and then have an adventure. And sometimes I'll go in and say to my guides, okay, I want to do this, that, and the other thing, and can you help me out with that? And that's great, and we'll go off and we'll go do that adventure. But sometimes I'm in a spot where I just go, guide, what is it that I need to know right now? And then they'll give me some experience that will be important for my growth. And that's a wonderful way to approach things too, is to just say, I'm turning it over to your hands, and bring to me what I need to know. So that's a great place to start, is to go to the spot where you meet your guide. And then usually after that, I'll recommend that people do the one about the tunnel. I mean, everybody's heard about, you lift out of your physical body, and there's some sort of escort there that will help take you to the light through the tunnel. And the tunnel is an extraordinary structure. It's just filled with so much cool stuff. I mean, there's colors that you've never seen before. There's beautiful music. There's, scenes from your life. There's branches. I mean, it does all kinds of things that are really quite extraordinary. So it's a great experience all in itself, and it's a great tool for manipulating the non-physical universe and figuring out how you want to go faster or slower, left or right, or put your hand through the wall of the tunnel to feel texture. And it teaches you so many tools that are really helpful later on when you're exploring with the non-physical universe with other entities. So so that's the place I'd start. If you're gonna do it at home, first meet your guide and then go tool around in the tunnel for a while.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, and then after that, we go right into what you were talking about before, Kat, which is heart. Yes. Learn to center yourself in that loving heart energy. And from there, all things open, because manifestation comes from heart energy, and the ability to do healing both on yourself and others is a heart energy function. And to know and feel what it's like to be in that space is, I think, really helpful for our development as multidimensional human beings. So there you go. Those are the first three.
I love that. Well, and it would be important to have that skill, because you're interacting with people that are only energy and love. And if you're not fluent there and fluid, then I can't see that working well. You got to keep up.
Yeah, you got to keep up. That's right. It's that energy, that ability to match your vibratory level with their vibratory level, that winds up being the key to entering into and holding any of these states of expanded awareness. Because there are different energies that are in different energy levels, and then we adjust our vibratory rate to match theirs, and then poof, you've got a friendship.
Poof. I like that. I like poof. So
yeah, that's a technical term.
It is. It works great from my side.
Okay.
So, well, okay. This is kind of, let me check our time. We are going to be going to a break in just about 5 minutes, but we can run over a little bit. I'm probably not going to fire me. But this is something that I keep hearing about. What's the science on NDEs? Aren't there alternative explanations? And we touched on this, but I think it's important for people to understand that as far as I know, there's not a specific role that science plays through this, is there?
Oh, yes, there is. Oh, yeah. There was a really extensive study done in Amsterdam that concluded in 2001. It was published in Nature, which is the English version of the AMA journal. Mm-hmm. So it's like the top medical journal for the UK. And it was done by Dr. Pim Ben Lamel, who is a cardiologist. And what he did was, as people would come into the emergency room in Amsterdam, he would, wire them up, because that's what you do when somebody comes in and says, I got chest pains. Boom, the first thing is you wire them up. And so he knew exactly when people would arrest and when their brain flatlined and when they came back online again, after they did the paddles to, restart the heart. During that period when the heart was stopped and the brainwave pattern was absolutely flat, that's the technical definition of death.
Right.
There were people who could describe the events that were happening in the hospital room, not dissimilar from yourself, Kat, about, what people were saying and what the monitors were showing and who was in the hallway and what their wife was buying out of the vending machine. I mean, there's all these wild stories, all verifiable, that happened during this time when the brain was physically incapable of making memory. It was dead. It was flatlined. And so that was the very first scientific, I shouldn't say it, not the very first. That was the study that put the nail in the coffin that said, yes, NDEs are real, and that we have consciousness that exists outside the body, and that the brain is not the source of consciousness. So, are we at our 5 minutes? Yes, we are.
Well,
we can pick it up after.
Yeah, because I have questions.
So, I knew you might.
It may be a comment, but I love it. But we'll be back. That way you can just get the answers that you're looking for. See you on the flip side.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope.
That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I'm so glad you are here tonight because this is a great show. Of course, all of our guests are great, but this one is so interesting on a topic that I don't get to talk about nearly enough. And that would be near-death experiences. It would be shared death experiences. It's just different universes, different science. And I just got schooled really well on that Amsterdam study. And I didn't know that was based in Amsterdam. I've always heard about that. And when I went to find who started putting stuff on top of cabinets, it was not readily googly. So thank you for that. And tonight our guest is Dr. Scott Taylor. He's pretty awesome in his own right. If you missed any of this show, go to iHeart and listen because this has been fantastic information. So, or any other streaming service that you may have. We're on all of them. So welcome back.
Thank you.
So we were doing all kinds of conversation about this, but
so the end of that story is that the doctor who did it, his name is Pim van Lommel, and he wrote a book called Consciousness Beyond Life, and that is the definitive book that says that near-death experiences are real, that consciousness does not reside within the brain. It's not created by the brain. It's something that exists in a non-physical body. And really interested in the science behind near-death experiences. There's another author. He's one of the founders of IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. His name is Dr. Bruce Grayson, and he has a book that's about a year old called After, and it's fabulous. It's a summary of 40 years worth of scientific research. He headed up the Department of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, and so he's a psychiatrist. He's an MD. He really brought great intellect to finding out what was going on, and it's a fabulous book, just fabulous. And as long as we're hawking somebody else's book, brand new research on shared death experiences, the kind I had, where you don't have to have physical trauma. You can be just bedside and then witnessed, go along and share in the Death Experience of Another. It's a book called At Heaven's Door by William Peters. It's a rather extensive study, 800 people. And in that study, I think one of the key findings of it is that, pause for just a second. What we have to remember is that near-death experiences aren't a death experience. You go there, you have an experience, and you come back to your physical body. So by definition, it's not the final thing. But in shared death experiences, there's one person, in my case, it was Nolan, who was making their final transition. And I got to share in that. I got to be with the person with Nolan as he's making, that final trip. And the 800 people, 100% of the people who were sharing in another's transition, they all went to a benevolent afterlife. Every single one of them.
Wow.
So in some near-death experiences, people will have a less than positive experience. But that seems to be created for the individual because there's something they need to know when they come back to their physical life. But not so with shared death experience. That is, they all go to a benevolent afterlife. And I find that result really heartening and consistent with at least my experience of when I touched the fabric of the universe. It was unconditional love and acceptance. Yeah.
And, there's so many people who, because of religious practices or just people telling them over and over that, well, you're going to hell. You're just going to hell. And I do understand that that's a great control factor. That's about all it's good for. But people are so afraid of anything. You can't be afraid of meeting your creator, connecting with the universe. And, it's just, there's too much that we get just tiny glimpses up here that are just glorious. And then...
And we know that people who've had a life review, that I don't know if people have seen the movie. Scott, Meryl Streep. The name is escaping me. Anyway, in the movie, there's this judgment day, and you go and you sit in front of a tribunal and you judge your life, and somebody. That's not how it works. In the life review, you are the only one there. I mean, you get to relive your life, and there is I call it the teacher protector. It's a divine being who is there with you, loving you through the experience of this life review. And really, their only question they ask you is, what did you learn? What did you learn? What did you learn? And as we all know, sometimes you think of something as a really bad experience. Oh, yeah, that was bad. But then later, as you get a different lens and different perspective, you go, oh my gosh, that's the greatest thing that could have possibly happened to me. And so that divine being is there to help us gain perspective and to understand what that scene was in our life and how it was, why it was there and the effect that it had on people. So in a life review, it's done with 3 different perspectives. I mean, you get to relive your life as you. Everything, all your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. what you were thinking at the time. You get to relive your whole life just as it happened, with the added benefit of you can speed it up, you can slow it down. In fact, I had a guy tell me that at one point he was doing his life review and he was mowing his yard, and he asked his divine being, how do I slow this down? And he slowed it down so much that he could count the number of mosquitoes that were flying around the yard. And it's in super HD, whatever number you pick one, so that you could, zoom in and zoom out, and so you have all of this control over your life review. You don't have to have it happen to you. You get to participate in it. Well, the other thing that happens is not only do you get to review your life as you, but you get to review life as the other. So if there's another person in the scene, you get to know exactly what she was thinking and she was feeling, and so you get to be this bilocation thing. And then in addition, you get to have the omniscient point of view, like God's perspective, and get to see how this interaction that you had, then what effect it had on the two of you and your families and your community and the nation and human beings in general. How did that roll out to everyone and how it could be affected? So it's a remarkable experience, one that gives us lots of perspective and really anchors the idea that that we are loved and accepted, and the only person who does the judging is you.
Absolutely.
Just yourself. That's the only judging that takes place. And do I have a little more time, or are we at break?
No, you've got a lot more time. You got 10 minutes before the next break.
Thank you very much. So what happens then is that we have this opportunity, with the help of the divine being, in that we can change what happened to us. Case in point. Okay, so I'm reviewing my life, and there's a scene where I'm at the checkout counter at a grocery store, and a teenage girl is checking me out, and the computer cash register isn't working, and I'm in a hurry, and I'm a jerk. I essentially insult her competence and her intelligence, and it's not pretty. So as I'm reliving my life and reliving that scene, I can stop and go, divine being, I would like to do that scene over again. Can I? And, of course, then you can. And so you rewind it and you play it again. Only this time I go, because I know everything she knows and feels, I realize that this is her first day of work. And Bob, the store manager, was supposed to train her in on this register. And all he really told her was, hit this button, follow the prompts on the computer screen. It'll tell you what to do. Well, it didn't.
Right.
And so she's lost and frustrated. And here I am making it worse. But this time through, I go, all of us had a first day on the job. And, you just don't know stuff. And take your time. We'll get this fixed. You can always fix the paperwork, so not to worry, and be affirming and supportive. And then I get to see how, instead of going home and kicking the cat, she goes home and has a pleasant conversation with her boyfriend. And you get to see how that rolls out in a positive way instead of a negative way, which is how it did the first time. Here's the cool thing. One, you get to fix your karma instantly. So whatever it is that you wanted that you thought you could do better, you can. And that new scene that you did becomes part of the human experience, just like the first scene did that was crummy. And so I get to learn, but we're all connected. We're all part of this grand human consciousness. And both those scenes are now in that consciousness, and everybody can benefit from them. So this life review is really an extraordinary thing. And that divine being that's there to support you and love you through the experience, you can really call on to help become more wise and to help you, really tease out what it is that could be of greatest growth for you.
Well, I think that's just brilliant. And I wish more people...
Yeah, who designed this system? They get an A.
No doubt. Well, I just think that's brilliant, though. We have a couple of questions here.
Sure.
So, let's see. One of the questions is, do you have more than one guardian angel? But do you think that there are guardian angels, or do you think that they're just entities that work the room as we come in? I mean, what's your take on that?
I think we have a whole host of beings that assist us in this physical life. And this is a really interesting question, because part of me goes, guardian angels are like assigned to us, like Nolan is assigned to me, and he's now, with me all the time, along with other guardian angels who can stay or rotate out, and new ones come in depending upon what their skill set is and what it is that I need to learn. And then I also think that a guardian angel, may be just a higher aspect of myself. Mm-hmm. The part of me has, I believe that as a human being, we are multidimensional, that I exist here in the physical world, but I also exist in that state of expanded awareness, and that state where I'm in with the void, and that state where I'm with, in that area of life between lives, and. I mean, there's that we exist on all these levels of creation at once. And so what's not to say that, part of me steps in and goes, Scott, I'm really thinking you should turn left instead of right at this, or pick up that book with the black cover. That will get you the answer you want. It's not a simple answer, I guess, is the easiest way to do that. I think that the guidance that comes to us depends upon what it is that we need, and what's the entity that's best suited to deliver that need is the one that'll show up. And, so if it's my higher self, great. If it's Nolan, great. If it's my guardian angel, his name is Marbler. If he shows up, great. He, she, it, whatever. Doesn't have a gender. But, and there's this whole, in the area of life between lives, when we get ready to come down into the physical world, there's quite a process that goes on in terms of how we're going to assemble that life. Who's going to be our parents, and who's going to be our friends, and what experiences do we want to have? What physical capabilities do we want to have? How much intellect? Just all of this. And I call them the Council of Friends. And it's this vast group of people that help you arrange all of this. So when we land here in the physical world, it's not by accident. We have designed this life, and we have designed how it is that we would like to live it. And then there's decision points along the way. There's multiple exit points along the way, should we choose to opt out. So those are guardian angels too, at least in my mind, because they're there helping us out.
It's logical.
Yeah. And then there's another council. I call them the Council of Self, which is, it's a long story, but there's a meditative state that you can go to where you can, meet yourself when you're 7 or 9 or 15 or 21, all the way up till you exit this physical world. And in my mind, when I meet with them, it's like we're sitting around a bonfire and there's a bunch of logs, and there I am at various ages sitting around, and we have this conversation as a group about what's going on in my life and what it is we need, and my different selves are adding perspective. There's a great story. This guy by the name of Stephen was in my near-death class, and he comes to that exercise when we actually do this thing. And after the exercise, you come down and we sit as a group and we share what happens. And he raises his hand. I call on him, and he goes, "Scott, when I got up, there I was. I'm 9 years old, and this little 9-year-old Stephen walks right up to me and pokes his finger right in the middle of my chest, and he did it hard too. And he says, 'Don't you remember what we're supposed to be doing?' And he said, it caught me by surprise. And I said, well, obviously not. Why? What are you trying to tell me? He says, 'Do you remember what we used to do on Saturday afternoons?' And he goes, let's see, 9 years old? Yeah, we used to go out on the sand dunes by El Paso on the Gulf of Mexico there, and we would fly a kite as the wind would come off the ocean. It'd hit the dunes, and we would fly a kite, and it was magical because it was we were one with the sand and the sea and the wind, and I got outside of myself, and it was a beautiful experience. And the little 9-year-old boy poked him in the chest again and says, 'And you've forgotten that.' So they had a conversation about how he can incorporate that again. And so he called me not too long ago and said, when he goes on a trip, that's the first thing he puts in his suitcase is a kite and string. Awesome. Isn't that wonderful? Just to remind himself to be the kid again, to put yourself purposely in that childlike state so that you can lose some of that adult worries and cares that we have from, trying to earn a living here in the physical.
Yeah. Well, we've got to take our final break. That was so cool. And I'm sure that Lori is thrilled that she asked that. But we will be back, everyone, right after this. This is our final break, so if you've got questions, you better hop over. We'll see you after this.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back for this final segment of Fate Mag Radio with Dr. Scott Taylor. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, and I can't tell you what a good time I've had. This has been a great show, and I just enjoyed everything you've brought to the table, Scott.
Well, thank you.
So, thank you. So we have another question, and that is, have you been shown any of your past lives? Or is it just one continuous flow as we cycle through?
Yes, I have been shown my past lives. For whatever reason, I have had many lives as a soldier. And I could tell you all kinds of experiences from, Roman and the war in Balaclava and the U.S. Civil War and World War I. I don't know why, but there's some lesson. And oddly enough, they tend to pop in scenes from those when I take a shower. And I'm not really particularly thinking about things, and I've, lost, you're kind of warm and you lose the sense of physicalness because of the water. And they pop in, and I get a chance to see them and witness them and go, oh, yeah. So the answer is yes. And they tend to be discreet. So it's not one big, long adventure.
Well, that's good. I've just been curious about that. And the questioner is really into visiting her past lives. She's had a couple of readings done, and they've been very successul.
Yeah, it's very helpful in terms of adding perspective to what's going on in this life, and the idea that the wisdom that you gain from one life can bleed over into another timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really helpful to understand how that can lend a richness and complexity to what we're doing right now. And so I'm hoping in all my other lives right now, I'm becoming wiser, and that's helping me at the moment.
Well, that works. That could only benefit. Now, you wanted to touch on the different colors of light during an NDE experience.
Yeah, this is, I think, something really interesting, because the media has, when they show a light, somebody having a near-death experience, think Harry Potter, right?
Right.
You go through a tunnel and there's the white light at the end of the tunnel. Well, that's a large, percentage, like 60% of the people who enter into a white light experience. And the white light is brilliant. It's like a million suns, and it doesn't hurt your non-physical eyes. It's powerful. It's loving. And if you're really wise, and you're standing in this light, what you begin to realize is that you are becoming part of that light. And if you're good, you'll look around behind you and you'll discover there's no shadow. Ooh. And that is just a recognition that you are a part of the light, and the light is part of you. So that's a white light experience. There's also a black light experience. And black light is that is the place where we exist before form. So if you're a Genesis 2 person, you know, the Bible talks about before there was physical matter, before there was light, there was, you know, the word that was upon the void. And this is that space. And, you know, all things exist in potential in this space. And when we give it concept, when we give it a name, that's when it pulls out and forms itself into concrete reality. So that is an extraordinary spot. The people who have that experience will very often, when they're describing it to me, cross their arms in front of their chest and kind of do this little rocking motion and say that this is a deeply loving, compassionate space. It's the womb of God. Isn't that a lovely expression? It's the womb of God. So that's black light. Clear light, for those of you who have seen What Dreams May Come, that is a Robin Williams film where he enters into the afterlife and he finds himself in this space where all of a sudden all of the colors that he's used in paintings begin to exude their own light. And that's what it's like to have a clear light experience. That's what happened to me, actually, is, you know, I'm in this hospital room. All of a sudden, I'm in this space where everything is exuding its own energy. And you begin to realize that I am that energy, that energy is the very fabric of the universe. And it is that we cannot be separated from it. Anyway, so it's a relatively rare experience. It's a clear light experience, and it's all of them are like different manifestations of the love that is the universe. So there you go.
On different levels. I love that. Are those the only 3 colors that are there?
Those are the 3 that I have uncovered in doing my research. I've read about 3,000 cases and have interviewed hundreds of people who've had near-death experiences. And in general, that's the 3 that show up. The other thing that happens every once in a while, people will come to me and say, I wonder if I had a near-death experience. And I'll say, what do you remember? And they say nothing. And so why do you think? Well, and then they start describing how their life changed after the car accident or the heart attack or whatever it was that landed them in that spot. And they are just poster children for the after effects of a near-death experience. And there's a great researcher. Her name is PMH Atwater, and she has detailed out very specifically what these after effects are. And that's what she says is the definition of a near-death experience. Are you experiencing the after effects? And, you know, these people are poster children. So somehow, like in a car accident, the short-term memory part of the brain got damaged, and so they really don't remember. But how they live their life is so different than what it was before that you can go, yep, you're a member of the tribe. Yep. You can just check them off.
Well, you inducted me with mine, so that's pretty. I had just always thought I didn't have one because, you know.
Well, there is an initiation and a secret handshake and all that. We'll do that later.
Got it. Don't want to be not be able to get something because I don't know the handshake. So, a smile can only take you so far. Actually, it can take you anywhere. But, well, you know, I know because I have the information and stuff, but not everyone does. you want to tell people about how they can get in touch with you, your websites, the different things that they can find there? And
I would love to. Thank you, Kat. My website is neardeathmeditations.com. And there, on that website, you can get descriptions of the 6 albums that I've done that have to do with guiding you through different aspects of a near-death experience using binaural beats and using meditation. So that's there. If you're really interested and want to get a great experience, we have a 5.5-day course where we lead you through the transition about 25 times. So by the end of the week, you really know what to expect when you are having your final transition. We have a brand new offering, which is a 2-day workshop, which is kind of a taste of the 5.5-day workshop. And it's wonderful, just wonderful. And really cool information about near-death experiences and shared death experiences. All that is on the website, neardeathmeditations.com. And there you'll also get a chance to check in with my podcast, which is called The Afterlife Files. And you can pull it up on YouTube. Some great videos, some great conversations I've had with near-death researchers. And it's like Kat's, it's on all of the streaming services that are out there. So you can listen to it when you're doing your yard work. You don't have to watch it. So thank you for letting me do that little commercial.
well, people need to know. Your information is fantastic. I know they're going to want to reach out. So now they can.
Now they can. Yep. And there's a form on there if you want to send me an email. Easy peasy.
I like easy peasy. Well, we are nearing the close here. Is there anything that you would like to leave people with? Is there anything that you would like to share in addition to what you have?
Yeah. I think all of this talk about near-death experiences and trying to touch base with Mary Fran and Nolan and touch base with these expanded states of awareness, in and of themselves, they're fun to do. But the real goal of all of this exploration is so that we can live our lives more fully here on Earth, that we can live our lives without fear, and that we can embrace things that we're uncertain about, people that have divergent opinions. It's so much easier to live that life once you realize that when we leave our physical existence, we go into a loving, benevolent universe, and we all win. There you go.
That's pretty great. Epic, even. So,
boy, I've been called epic, so I'm going to take that to bed with me.
Well, that's a good thing. You can just wrap your arms around it. But I just appreciate you. I appreciate your time, your information, your sense of humor, and your patience. So, thank you.
And thank you, Kat. Yeah, and thank you, Kat. This has been a lot of fun. So may you continue to have more really interesting interviews.
Thank you. I hope so too, because I love learning, and my guests do also, the listeners. So I just want to tell everyone that, if you're having a tough day, if your week is a little rugged, if somebody's just, being a grump and you're the one catching that, then all you have to really do is just change it.
Amen.
What do you say? You can definitely
Amen.
change it.
I'll go to that church.
Oh, yes. And, this guy named Corey Young wrote a song for an African charity, and it's called Be the Change. And it's brilliant. You can only see it on YouTube because it was for that event. But He's an amazing singer and musician. The song means everything. And, you know, sometimes you just need to step up to the plate and be that joy, be that excitement, be that love and concern. Just be the change. You'll know what you need to do. And you have it in you. Every one of us has this in us to create the change. So we are going to go now, but you know what? I'll see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Thank you.